Princess Anne is honoring her late father in infinite grief, as she made a heartfelt statement about Prince Philip's passing, after 2 days he's passed away. In a statement shared on the royal family's Instagram account, the only daughter of Prince Philip and Queen Elizabeth, Princess Anne, 70, released a loving message to her late father in a lengthy caption shared with a black and white photograph of the two. Princess Anne said, "You know it's going to happen but you are never really ready," and began her statement. She said, "Continue. My father has been my teacher, my supporter and my critic, but mostly it is his example of a life well lived and service freely given that I most wanted to emulate. His ability to treat every person as an individual in their own right with their own skills comes through all the organizations with which he was involved. I regard it as an honor and a privilege to have been asked to follow in his footsteps and it has been a pleasure to have kept him in touch with their activities," she continued. "I know how much he meant to them, in the UK, across the Commonwealth and in the wider world." Princess Anne concluded her statement by thanking those all over the world for their condolences. "I would like to emphasize how much the family appreciate the messages and memories of so many people whose lives he also touched," she shared. "We will miss him but he leaves a legacy which can inspire us all." Princess Anne was very close to her father and was long rumored to be his favorite of his 4 children. Eileen Parker, wife of Philip's close friend Mike Parker, previously told the Daily Mail, "Philip always had more fun with Anne. Charles is more like the Queen, while Anne is very like Prince Philip." The duo shared many common interests, including sport and an enthusiasm for life as working members of the royal family. On the day Princess Anne was born, the 15th of August 1950, Prince Philip was promoted to the rank of Lieutenant Commander in the Royal Navy. After the birth, he allegedly told everyone, "It's the sweetest girl." In a pre-recorded interview with ITV, the Princess Royal has admitted life will be difficult without him. "Without him life will be completely different," she said. Of her the late royal's legacy, Princess Anne added, "But from society's perspective he was able to keep pace with the kind of technological changes that have such an impact, but above all that it's not about the technology, it's about the people." Princess Anne also remarked on the sacrifices her father had made for being married to the Queen. On giving up his Navy career, she continued, "It shows a real understanding of the pressure the Queen was going through and that the best way he could support her was on giving up on his career." Out of all Prince Philip's children, Princess Anne has been the most successful in leading an independent identity, both as a professional horsewoman and in her charity work. She is often hailed as one of the most hardest working royals, and also topped the list last year, carrying out an astonishing 540 official duties both at home and overseas. And in order to lead a relatively normal life, Princess Anne turned down royal titles for her own children, Peter Phillips and Zara Tindall, knowing that her position in the line of succession would be moved down once her brothers had children. All 4 of Philip's children with the Queen have spoken movingly of their father since his death. Prince Charles released an emotional message about Prince Philip in which he said, "As you can imagine, my family and I miss my father enormously." Prince Andrew said his mother described it as having left a huge void in her life. "We've lost, almost, the grandfather of the nation," he said. "And I feel very sorry and supportive of my mother, who's feeling it probably more than everybody else." Prince Edward called Prince Philip's death a dreadful shock but said the 94-year-old Queen was bearing up. "It is with deep sorrow that Her Majesty the Queen has announced the death of her beloved husband, His Royal Highness the Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh," the palace said in a statement at the time. "His Royal Highness passed away peacefully this morning at Windsor Castle." The statement continued, "The royal family join with people around the world in mourning his loss." Prince Philip's funeral is set to take place at St. George's Chapel at Windsor Castle on Saturday, the 17th of April at 3 p.m. The service, which will be televised, will begin with a minute's silence and be preceded by a ceremonial procession inside the grounds of Windsor Castle. The royals will follow pandemic-related health and safety requirements for the memorial, and therefore, only 30 people will be in attendance at the private service. The monarch, 94, will refrain from carrying out any royal duties for the next few days as she enters a mourning period. Affairs of state will also be put on pause. Prince William also cancelled his BAFTAs appearance on Saturday following his grandfather's passed away. Prince Harry, who is in California, has arrived in the UK to attend the funeral, while Meghan Markle, who is pregnant with their second child, did not receive medical clearance from her physician to travel. Prince Philip didn't want an elaborate state funeral, instead asked for a more intimate affair during his final days. Before his passed away, he had a hand in making his own funeral plans. In an interview, royal correspondent Omid Scobie, co-author of Finding Freedom, spoke about Prince Philip's funeral. A state funeral is what Prince Philip is entitled to as the Queen's consort, and it would be a day of mourning for the country but would involve heads of state from around the world being invited to congregate at Westminster Abbey to remember his life. It is something that we last saw with Princess Diana's funeral. The whole world stood still for that moment. With Prince Philip, he has asked for a much more quieter event. He has asked, in his words, a simple affair, and that is exactly what is happening at the ceremonial service that will take place at St. George's Chapel at Windsor Castle, he added. Prince Philip's body will lie at rest in Windsor Castle ahead of the funeral in St. George's Chapel. The decision is in line with his wishes as well as royal tradition. Scobie added that the funeral will be carried out in military style. The Queen's husband did not like fuss and made that known when it came to planning his funeral. Prince Philip worked closely with the Lord Chamberlain's office at Buckingham Palace to ensure that it wasn't a blown-up affair, and that means that it won't be a state funeral. Instead, it will be a royal ceremonial funeral, which will be a much more private affair. This will really give a chance for the royals to remember his life in a very peaceful and quiet way. It also avoids the worries that the government have over people congregating during the time of the pandemic, he continues. For Prince Philip, this is exactly what he wanted. It's a send-off that he had asked for. The Queen is expected to enter an 8-day mourning period for her husband of 73 years. During the period, all royal duties, as well as affairs of state, will be paused. After the 8 days, the country is expected to go into a 10-day-long mourning period, while the royal household will reportedly do so for 30 days. Prince Philip was hospitalized in February, as a precautionary measure on the advice of his doctor after not feeling well. He was later transferred from King Edward VI's hospital to another London facility, St. Bartholomew's Hospital, with the palace noting that he was continuing to be treated for an infection in addition to undergoing testing and a procedure for a pre-existing heart condition. He left the hospital in March after a 28-day stay. And while it may be a very difficult and heartbreaking time for the 94-year-old head of the monarchy, Scobie notes, she does have a very large family, many grandchildren, great-grandchildren who were all there for her in her time of need. The country is officially in an 8-day mourning period that will last until his funeral at St. George's Chapel at Windsor Castle on Saturday afternoon. The Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, the principal leader of the Church of England who is set to officiate Prince Philip's farewell, said no words can reach into the depth of sorrow that goes into bereavement during a service at Canterbury Cathedral. We all know that it is not simply a factor of age or familiarity. It is not obliterated by the reality of a very long life, remarkably led, nor is the predictability of death's arrival a softening of the blow, he said. Loss is loss. Thank you for watching our video. Please support growing channel by subscribe channel and like video hour, and don't forget activate notifications to channel to always get the latest news. If you have any problems with the information in the video, please write a comment below to let us know and answer.